Hey guys, Chicken and Maine, Deboo.com, the Deboo.com Surf Forecast Update. This forecast update effective around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, September 26, 2016. And guys, here's the latest update on 97L Invest. I know we've been promising to cut a video over the last couple of days. We just haven't felt comfortable in cutting a video yet. But here's what's the upcoming forecast and 97L we'll be looking at. We're going to start you off with some satellite imagery with a very picturesque area of low pressure here over the Great Lakes, with the front wrapping down into the Bay of Campeche, and we're watching for a couple of areas of low pressure. The rule of thumb during tropical season is always watch the tail ends of fronts or along stalled or dying fronts for an area of low pressure to develop. And we thought we saw an area of low pressure developing down in here in the Bay of Campeche earlier this morning. Models are not showing that, but the GFS has been hinting at a weak area of low pressure developing off the southeast U.S. coast right in here, almost where, kind of where Julia was in here last week. And this front is now moving through. The forecast is now calling for a weak area of low pressure to develop in here, move up towards the Outer Banks, and then probably increase some fairly gusty winds up here towards Nova Scotia and Newfoundland over the next 72 hours. It's possible to get some squally weather off the Outer Banks over the next 48 hours. So that's just something that we're looking at. This area of low pressure that's over here towards the Great Lakes is forecast to kind of dip down towards the southeast, southwest, and then kind of bounce around along the northeast coast in here, maybe a little bit inland. We'll show you that in the latest 18Z GFS model run here in just a few moments. But let's drop you back down here and look at this main feature. This is now 97L Invest east of the islands in here, and this is likely to become Tropical Storm MATH-YOO over the next 36 to 72 hours as it crosses in here past into the Eastern Caribbean. Now, guys, everything that we show you at the moment is subject to change. Forecast is always subject to change. There is uncertainty with the eventual outcome of 97L Invest. We're going to keep it in a 10-day window. It would be ludicrous to show you anything outside of 10 days, so that's where we're going to keep it. Progressing you forward, this is the latest surface forecast out of the National Hurricane Center, 24-hour surface forecast showing possible tropical cyclone MATH-YOO developing over the next 24 to 72 hours. Seas increasing just south of Puerto Rico, 14 to 18 feet, could see 20 feet. And if you look just northeast of Puerto Rico, you'll see seas in the 10 to 12 foot range. That's going to create a little 13-second swell period coming up over the next 72 to 96 hours. We'll show you that in the swell forecast maps. This is the 48-hour swell forecast map out of the National Hurricane Center. Now, this is high pressure enhanced Tropical Storm Lisa swell, getting ready to move into the coast over the next 48 hours. Now, we've got some onshore winds here locally in Jacksonville. That's where we're located. Northeast winds 15 knots and gusty this afternoon, and that's complements of that area of low pressure that may be trying to develop off the southeast coast that we just told you about. But over the next 48 to 72 hours, this is the 72-hour swell forecast. And again, this is high pressure enhanced Tropical Storm Lisa swell moving north of Hispaniola, in through the Bahamas, and into the southeast U.S. coast. And then if you look down here towards the bottom, towards the islands here, let me pull this down for you. This is the little 10-second swell period that's being developed in front of 97L Invest. Looking at the 96-hour swell forecast, here's that swell from 97L Invest sneaking past Hispaniola, but this could be all for naught as the extended period starts to come on with strong onshore flow setting up from Nova Scotia all the way down into South Florida, with a possible developing hurricane moving north of Hispaniola. We'll get into that in just a few moments. Here's the GFS 18Z. This is the this afternoon's run, and we're going to start you off here. And we're going to stop it here in just a second, but you can see 97L moving through the Caribbean as possible tropical storm MATH-YOO. But we also want you to take note, here is this area of low pressure that just moved off from the southeast coast in here, and then up towards Nova Scotia, and then out towards Newfoundland. And then you can see that other area of low pressure that's over the Great Lakes that we showed you here. This. Watch how this drops down towards the coast and kind of meanders. Now, that's going to put some increasing east-southeast wind flow into the northeast states and bring them some relief, some drought-busting relief. They are under drought conditions in the northeast. Hopefully, that will give them a little bit of shot of some liquid. And then we got to get down in here to look at 97L. Now, models have consistently, over the last couple of days, has lifted 97L north, either over western Cuba, Hispaniola. They have not made it a threat to Puerto Rico, but because of the proximity, you're not out of the mix in there. And if you remember when this kind of first started off, it was a track towards the Gulf of Mexico. That can't be ruled out yet, but models, again, have been consistent, especially between today, the Euro and the GFS, that they abruptly want this thing to turn due north and lift straight up over the islands in here. Now, we've talked about this before. The island of Hispaniola is known as a storm killer because of the high mountainous terrain, can disrupt the flow of the low pressure system. But we typically see that when the track is more of a northwest track, where it interacts with Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, then maybe over Cuba in here. And so this is all land interaction, and that's the ones where we see that the storms sometimes can get ripped apart. In this scenario, you're going from over water, over land, to back over water quickly, where the environment is very, very favorable for intensity to increase. So that's what we're going to be watching for. We'll advance the model just a little bit further. And as you can see, the GFS lifts this up through the southern Bahama chain and develops it into a hurricane. Now look at this high pressure stacked over New England. This is an extreme northeast flow into the outer banks, or rotating into easterly flow into the outer banks with a developing hurricane with northeast winds in here. This is an extreme event, guys, that could set up. Again, the outcome is not certain at the moment, so this all could change depending on what happens over the next couple of days. But we also want to back you up to over here towards the UK with the season's first possible hurricane force low in the North Atlantic. We are approaching that time of season. The Northeast Pacific just had their first hurricane force low about 5 to 6 days ago. And if you look up here in this image, I'll see if I can kind of zoom in. You can see fresh snow on the ground up here. You can see the tracks in here. So the summer melt season is over in the Arctic, and fresh snow is starting to fall. So that's a key indication we're well on our way towards winter. And when hot meets cold in this North Atlantic, we can get hurricane force lows to develop in here. And that's what we're watching. And that's those ones that can give us those big northeast swells into the U.S. and the islands, but then also light up the East Atlantic. We'll switch you back over to the model and advance a little bit further. Again, guys, we're just going to keep this in 10 days. You can see that there's a tight gradient pinch between the high pressure and the what looks to be Hurricane Matthew lifting out over Hispaniola. And as we get into 240, this is 10 days. We're going to stop it right here. We still have this increasing onshore flow. Okay, no offshore winds, guys. So I know everybody's going to be complaining, when are we going to get offshores? Not going to advance the model any further from here. That's 10 days. But look, there's another area of low pressure that the GFS puts out here towards the Azores. And then let's show you the difference between the GFS 18Z and the 12Z European model run. As you can see, the European model run is slower in solution. This is 10 days. Just moving over the eastern tip of Cuba, and the GFS has it well on its way, lifting more to the north, southeast of the Outer Banks. Now, the Euro model also has this secondary low in here. So either way, from a surf forecast perspective, there's going to be some strong onshore flow. Some northeast swell will likely develop from here. And if this follows suit with the GFS, which we just seen here, with moving the low pressure out here, because the Euro may be a day behind or 2 days behind the GFS, then we can also assume that that's going to tighten up the northeast gradient in here at the same time this system lifts towards the north, possible Hurricane Matthew, just east of Florida. That's all we got for you for now, guys. Stay tuned for the next update.